Hey, it's Kirby Myers, and you're listening to Behind the Blonde. So this is a podcast for anyone who's ever been in the opposite place of where they want to be. This episode is actually coming out on New Year's Eve day, which is very fitting in a way. I had given up alcohol and nicotine almost 5 years ago. And I'd realized that I had really become anchored to marijuana as well. It was something I was treating myself with in the evenings, and then slowly realized that I was addicted to that as well, because that's how my fabulous, fun fucking brain works. So my last episode 2 weeks ago, we took last week off, was talking about giving yourself grace through the rut. I was feeling really down. I'd gotten sick. My kids weren't with me for Christmas. So it'd been kind of a perfect storm this month in the sense of not feeling good physically, then not feeling good mentally. About 4 months after I made the decision to remove marijuana, I decided to smoke over Christmas break. I let that first wave of the 15 minutes of craving pass. I let another wave pass, and hours later, I was still wanting to do it. I wanted to smoke pot because I wanted to escape. I wanted to give myself a couple of days while my kids were gone to not want to get up, to just binge watch TV and order some food and just be all like comfy cozy on the couch and totally blah. Well, guess what? Blah doesn't work for my brain. I think life is a series of figuring out your programming over and over again until you get it just right. I think I'm realizing that it wasn't this call for THC. It was, I just wanted to be less visible for a moment. I wanted to be less responsible, less in command. So today I want to talk about that really grounded realization that comes with a lot of discomfort. You can feel very wildly uncomfortable in your own body with still giving yourself grace. So I'm in this weird paradox right now where I'm not mad at myself. I'm like, you're human. It's okay. You made a choice. But I'm sharing this with you because whether it is alcohol or whether it is marijuana or whether it is food or whether it is other compulsions or things that you deal with, that every time you do them, they don't sit well. They don't linger well. Your brain doesn't react to them in whatever way you want them to react to. And I had gotten it pretty close to right after I gave up the marijuana. And let me tell you, my brain, my programming told me so quickly that that is not a component. That is not a data piece. That is not a chip that is supposed to be in my brain. And so my whole invitation to you today is whenever you make a decision that you realize after the fact didn't sit right, use it as data collection. So now that I'm starting to look at really the way that I'm programmed, I'm starting to continue to collect data on myself so that I can have that information every time I move forward. Not looking at it like failure, but looking at it as this is my own human experience. And in this particular experience, I am learning that this is the only time for me when doubt creeps in. And doubt is probably the most dangerous thing that can happen to my brain, because when I start to have negative thoughts and when I start to feel fearful and when I start to feel uneasy and uncomfortable in my body, that's when everything else crumbles. That's when my center point starts to get wobbly and starts to shift and is no longer holding on tightly to the tracks. So it was Christmas Eve when I ended up doing it. And I knew right away, call me a lot of things, don't call me moderate. I knew two things: that it was the wrong decision and that I was going to do it again. So yeah, I did it for a couple of days. And what I found the most interesting was the amount of just plain anxiety it brought back to my brain, that confidence killer, those normal disruptors that I guess stand outside at the gates of my brain and say, no, you're not a thought that we want to let in here. I'm hyper self-aware. I always say it's probably the best and the worst thing about me. I think that most of us, our biggest strength is our biggest weakness. So my hyper self-awareness is awesome because I hold myself to this really high standard and I want to be really great and be a really great person. And it comes with a lot of integrity and I hold myself accountable. But with that comes so much pressure and so much unnecessary strain. When those little thoughts come in, I guess I have some really good little gatekeepers that say, no, we don't want you. Be gone. Toodaloo. And so what weed does is I did a lot of research on the Google to really understand this time. Remember when I talked about with alcohol, I wanted to understand. I read This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. The understanding to me is what really shifted with the alcohol of not wanting to do it anymore because of how bad it is for your body, for your brain. And that really, I knew physically I didn't feel good, but the understanding what it did to my brain. Now, weed can do very different things to different people. So for me, understanding that because of this hyper self-awareness, because of this hyper, active brain that I have, for some people, it does allow them to chill out. It does allow them to calm down. It does allow them to do what my intention was, to just have a lazy holiday on the couch watching endless episodes of Yellowstone. Thanks, Dad, for getting me hooked on that. No, instead, my little gatekeepers left. Everything came in, and I just sat there in a wallow of self-doubt and discomfort. For me, anxiety is the worst emotion I've ever experienced because it feels like I'm a prisoner in my body. It feels like I want to honestly gouge my eyes out when it's at the worst. And I haven't felt that in a really long time. So it makes sense that when I've come this far and done this much work on myself, even though I've been smoking the last few years, but I have gotten this much clarity over who I am and who I'm becoming and who I want to be and waking up and making these choices every day for the betterment of myself, it almost makes sense to me that I had such an insane and am still kind of having such an insane reaction to it that a couple days later, I'm still extremely anxious and uncomfortable. So this is the first time I've ever been wildly uncomfortable on camera. Usually love a microphone, but I decided to get on here and do it and ride that wave with you and let you know that you're not alone. We all crazy. Nothing wrong with being a little crazy as long as we continue to choose to understand it. I never want to lose my good crazy, but the bad crazy, learning how to keep that at bay and continuing to collect this data. So every time something happens like this, as I move forward, and I think it's so fitting on New Year's Eve day, because I don't want you to go into this new year and think about failures. I don't want you to set yourself up for failure. And I think one of the ways that we don't set ourselves up for failure, one of the ways that we set ourselves up for success, if you will, and the word success doesn't mean that we never smoked pot again. But success means that I took this moment and instead of hating myself for it, I am collecting the data. I am sitting with it. I am wildly fucking uncomfortable right now. Even while I have this podcast with you, I have tears in my eyes because being human is hard. And it proves itself over and over and over again, no matter how much work we do. But I'm going to keep doing the work. I'm going to keep choosing. So today, I'm choosing. Tomorrow, I'm choosing. And so my New Year's Eve invitation to you is not to have a resolution, to not say I'm going to do dry January, or I'm doing 75 hard, or I'm going to lose 15 pounds by spring break, whatever it might be. But every day I'm going to choose clarity. And in what ways can I show up to choose it? Clarity over everything. Because if I have clarity in my brain, then I'm making those right decisions. Every day I'm going to choose. And then I'm going to wake up and I'm going to choose it again. So I invite you to choose with me because we talk about choice by choice, day by day, year by year. But we can't look at the year. We can only look at the day. And that way, if you have a hiccup, my hiccups lasted a couple of days over break, that's okay. I didn't fail. I'm continuing to succeed because I'm continuing to choose. It's about what we are willing to protect. I know I don't want to live a life where I negotiate my confidence anymore. So let's go into this new year, not only choosing our clarity, choosing our confidence, but also choosing today, meaning giving ourselves permission to be easier on ourselves. It is the hardest thing in my life, being really kind to myself. I preach it all the time. Be kind to others. I am kind to others. I embody it. I know that. But why is it so damn hard sometimes to be really, really kind to ourselves? So that's what I'm going to work on today. And then I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to choose clarity again. And I'm going to choose kindness again. And I'm going to keep showing up every week. And if you like this, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell button on YouTube, because I forgot to say that 2 episodes ago. I messaged my girlfriend, Maddie, who told me about that. I was like, dang, Maddie, I did it 1 episode and then I forgot. So thank you if you are listening out there in the podcast or the YouTube world. It means the world to me. I almost didn't show up today because I got so in my head. And again, not because I felt like a failure, but just I feel like in this stuck, uncomfortable moment that I need to pass. I need to get through this anxiety. I need to wave through it. And I was talking to my husband about it and he's like, you love doing this. And this is what your podcast is all about. This is what you do this for. This is why you show up, to remind yourself and remind everybody that this human thing is hard. Just keep showing up and keep choosing. Happy fucking New Year. Thanks for listening to Behind the Blonde.